Hey everyone, welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. You guys on Twitter submitted your most pressing concerns for this Chargers team and what worries you most moving forward. So we're going to break this down to either panic or patience. Now we do have to pick one or the other. I think some people will freak out because we're panicking or we're being too lenient and patient, but it's the name of the game. But there's no way I could have done this without Arjun because he has a very unique perspective, very analytics based perspective and fresh perspective on all of this. So, Arjun, thanks for joining me. I know you were sick earlier this week. How are you holding up today?
Doing much better. Tyler, thanks for having me on. It's always fun to do more episodes, just talking Chargers, talking football, and I'm excited to get into some of these topics that people are concerned about on Twitter.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun, sort of, unless we all pick panic, but we'll see. So in the comment section below, guys, let me know, panic, patience, which one makes you the most panicked, which one should be the most calm about. We'll see. So we'll start off with one that I really wanted to get your opinion on this one, maybe more than any other one, and that's panic or patience for this run defense. Now, the numbers do not look good. I don't know how things have changed after the Thursday night football game, but as of a couple of days ago, the Chargers gave up the third most rushing yards per game. They're still much better than the Kansas City Chiefs, although the Chiefs did face the Browns and the Ravens, so that makes their numbers pretty rough. So I think I know where you're going with this one, but I want to know and hear your perspective, panic or patience on this run defense so far.
Yeah, Tyler. So I have to admit, this is a complete patience thing with me. I would say, a little bit worried, but I think Justin Jones being out was the biggest problem on this past Sunday against the Cowboys. But here's the thing. So obviously we know what Staley's defense is built upon. They're limiting explosive plays, which they have done very well, actually. So there's actually a guy on Twitter. His real name is John, I believe, but he goes by MIBPJ, and he's actually a really good guy to talk to. And he's similar to me in that he looks at the Chargers from an analytics perspective. And he put out a really cool thread saying how the Chargers have one of the worst run defenses. We can all agree on that. But they are actually the best team in terms of limiting explosive plays, so 20 yards down the field. So as much as it hurts to see, Zeke and Pollard picking up these 5-6 yard runs, the Cowboys only put up 20 points. And so, the whole point of Staley's defense is to bore the opposing offense out, to make them take a deep shot, and for them to make a mistake, which we saw with the interception of Dak Prescott from Asante Samuel.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree. I do think this is patience. Now, would I like to see them not give up 5.5 yards per carry? Sure.
Yeah.
If you want to invite the run, but not give up 5.5 yards per carry, that's fine. But I believe at least before the Ravens game, there was a stat where the Kansas City Chiefs with Mahomes had played 17 games where the opposing rusher rushed somewhere between 4.5 and like 8 yards per carry. And the Chiefs only lost one of those games.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the name of the game. I think the Kansas City Chiefs are right here, by far the worst so far, but no one's even worried about them. So yeah, I am going to be patient on this one. We'll talk about some of the reasons this run defense isn't doing that well. But yes, I'm going to say patience, even though the numbers don't look good. They're still not scoring a lot of points on this Chargers team. Prescott didn't do it against the Rams last year, where they handed the ball off to Zeke 20-something times, and they didn't do it this year, where they handed the ball off to the running backs, but at 30-something times, only 20 points. So you pass to score, run to win, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one will be a hot topic. I'm so glad that you found the original poll that we had sent out about Storm Norton, because after that first game, everyone's like, "Oh my gosh! Like I'm so confident in him." I think the majority of our polled fans were between like a 5 confidence and like an 8 confidence out of 10.
Yeah.
And that was after the first game. After the second game, everyone's like, "Please fire him. Get him out there. I'll take anything at this point." So it's been fun to watch the evolution of Chargers fans. But this is kind of a two-parter. It's Storm Norton and it's Brian Bulaga. Storm Norton obviously gave up 9 pressures against Micah Parsons in the Dallas front. Bulaga is injured. He could be back in 2 more games, but we'll see. So is this a panic thing or a patience thing for you right now?
Yeah, this is full-blown panic. Like, this is Godzilla on Tokyo right now. Like, as soon as Bulaga went down, like, okay, Norton did well against Washington. The point I brought up in my episode was like, the Chargers had the whole offseason to prepare for Washington, right? Norton had a week to prepare for Dallas and less even to prepare for just Parsons, who Staley said, or it was Staley or Herbert, like they said, we knew Parsons was going to play D end. So
Right.
like, I wasn't expecting too much out of Storm, but for him to give
Sure.
up 9 pressures against a rookie who just made the transition in like less than a week, that's
Yeah.
pretty bad. And like I said, the one thing I've known in my time in so far in just studying analytics stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you always have to take the larger sample size data over the smaller one. So the
Mm-hmm.
the sample data from the play we had last year mattered more to me than what we saw in
Mm,
less than a half of play.
right.
So this is a full blown panic until Bulaga gets back, and I do have faith in Bulaga when he's on the field. But yeah, I'm not super confident in Norton holding up. And the last point I want to bring up is like it felt like he was letting Parsons go inside every time. And like,
Yeah.
so when Parsons goes inside, right, Herbert has to scramble to his right. So that's
Mm-hmm.
completely taking away him throwing to the left part of the field. And so if they're running some type of like mesh concept where,
Mm.
Keenan or Mike are running a crosser over the middle to the left, he can't even throw to that anymore because Parsons, he's going inside. So wasn't too impressed. They're definitely going to need to help him out in the games going forward.
Yeah, it's going to be tough moving forward for sure. I have a video coming out at noon Pacific today about their red zone woes. And of the 5 categories of reasons for their red zone woes, there's just a category that's Storm Norton, unfortunately. And then it just didn't look good. And it's so funny because you watch Chris Jones, who's an amazing interior defensive lineman. He goes to play edge and he looks awful. Like he does not
Yeah.
look good. He did not look good against Alejandro Villanueva, who got killed by Max Crosby. So you think someone like Parsons going from linebacker to edge, which he admittedly hasn't played since high school, apparently, you think he'd have some sort of shot against a guy who just like is getting used to it or comfortable or something, and yet he gets 9 pressures. It was bad. He has a 90 efficiency grade for that day. I'm surprised it wasn't lower, to be honest, but it is what it is. So I will say panic on this one, especially because you can't rely on Balaga. If Balaga were a healthier guy and I knew he'd come back and he'd play the rest of the season, maybe not so much panic. But right now, Norton's going against, again, Chris Jones, Myles Garrett, everything that the Ravens will throw at them, Max
Yeah.
Crosby. It's going to be a pretty rough few games for sure. All right, let's go to the next one. This one's been a topic of debate for sure. A lot of frustration among Chargers fans. Some people want to say patience. Some people do want to say panic. I think it's leaning, at least in terms of the fan base, I think it's leaning towards panic. I know Steven has been more patient with him. I personally haven't liked the pick since they selected him, unfortunately, and it just hasn't quite panned out. Last year, he started really hot, and then things kind of just fizzled out. There was that exchange between defensive end and defensive tackle, and things kind of got messed around. So you're thinking this player, is able to sit the entire preseason out because the coach says that he had a phenomenal camp, and maybe
Phenomenal.
he did. Right, that word is still a whole different subject for me. I don't buy that he had a phenomenal camp, but again, you have to trust the head coach here. But then he comes out and puts up a 0 pass rush win rate and a 0 pass rush productivity score against the Washington football team. And then against the Dallas Cowboys, he did have a better game, but he was still in that first half pushed around quite a bit. So I'm curious where you're going with this one. I don't know how you even feel about the pick to begin with. So is this panic or patience with Jerry Tillery for you right now?
Yeah, I mean the pick. I thought we were gonna take Jawan Taylor back in
Yeah,
2019, but I didn't I didn't realize like he had the knee injury or something.
exactly.
So, but yeah, I was saying offensive line in that draft, but that's besides the point. Right now,
Sure.
I'm at the point. Honestly, this was the toughest one to really like prepare for and just think about
Right.
because I really just don't know what Tillery can do if he's in the like in a prime situation versus like he has to manufacture stuff for himself.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I'm gonna go with patience on this one. I think he's shown flashes. I read Daniel Popper's film room breakdown
Mm-hmm.
on Tillery, and I think he did a good job like showing some highlights, but also showing where he's getting pushed around by Terrence Steele, undrafted free agent. The biggest question for me is Brandon Staley using Tillery in like an Aaron Donald type role? And I know that sounds weird, but
Right.
Donald himself commands so many double teams that I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if Tillery, with his height and his like sort of athleticism off the ball, since he's not like a heavier D tackle,
Right.
You know, is he commanding a lot of double teams? And like, I don't think that's something PFF charts. So that would be like something like an ESPN metric. But if he's getting double teamed a lot, then his stats are not going to be as good. But that should also be freeing up Bosa, Nwosu, and whoever the opposite D tackle is, which should be just Justin Jones. But Covington's look pretty good. So I do think Tillery, like, we need to wait on it a little bit. But I would be lying if I said I wasn't worried, just because he really hasn't shown anything. But I think Staley said it best. Like, I just don't know what his use is, like how they're coaching him and how they plan to use him. Like, is he the guy to command double teams to take pressure off everyone else? Or is his goal to be the one to get the one-on-ones, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, that's a great way to look at it. And I certainly think that people, especially without the all 22 available to most people have been wondering, like, hey, is he just commanding that double team, or is he just losing his one-on-ones? Is he just losing his double teams? I don't know. I am going to go with patience for this one. I know people will argue that he doesn't deserve to be, for us to be patient with him because it's been since 2019. But the guy has had some rough breaks and perhaps a defensive coordinator that wasn't working well with him. So it's only been 2 games in, even though it's been 3 years, or we're in his third year, 1920, 21. Yeah, we're in his third year. He hasn't really had full off seasons. I'm very close to panic. And I think in a few more games, if he puts up some goose eggs or he just doesn't look good, or he gets, pushed around, I think it's sometime around the bye. Maybe I can start saying panic, but I will be patient for now because it is pretty early, but I'm very close to panic. And then Steven is going to do a breakdown. He's already done the full breakdown of the Chargers' run defense, and that's going to be dropping pretty soon. And that might make me lean towards panic, but we'll see, because he is a bit more of a fan of Tillery than I am. Okay, the next one. You pointed out a stat that the Chargers are the worst in the league right now, I believe, in in red zone touchdown percentage. And then it's like the third worst score or rate since 2016 or whatever. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's correct.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah, I know. It is like we get into the red zone, and then it's like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Okay, so right before this, we started recording. The guy I talked about earlier, John, aka MIBPJ, he actually wrote a really cool article today on Friday. So what he found was, right now, the Chargers have the second worst efficiency in the red zone per EPA, if that makes sense. So, like, I know we said
gotcha.
Third worst in points per drive in the red zone. They're second worst in terms of EPA. Now, this is only because Herbert's thrown 2 picks and had that BS sack fumble. Right. And so when you turn the ball over in the red zone, you're going to lose a ton of expected points. Okay, so that's what's driving down the Chargers' efficiency in the red zone. Now, I went back, looked at some of the red zone play calling, and it seems like the Chargers are trying to run a lot of the stuff they've run, like in the mid, like when they're at the 50, they're trying to put that in the red zone, and it doesn't work. And I think you have to be able to run the ball in the red zone. Like, this is the one time you'll hear me advocating to run the ball. Like like you guys know, from film guys, like, everything shrinks in the red zone, right? So, like, the margin for error, like, becomes like much higher or smaller. So if you can't run the ball, then defenses are not gonna, like, they're gonna take away everything available to pass. And this is where, like, you brought up Storm Norton earlier. Like, he just can't. He's the liability in the red zone in terms of, like, being able to block a guy. So this is where you have to rely on, like, running behind Rashawn Slater and Matt Filer, or putting an extra guy in to block for Austin Eckler and Larry Roundtree. Because because I'll point this out. The Chargers are actually the third best offense outside the red zone per EPA. So, take that information, do whatever you want with it. But they are very good outside the red zone. But once they enter, they just turn into, like, this mess that I think I just don't know how to explain it. I really don't.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't give my answer. This is still patience for me.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go with patience as well. After reviewing the Dallas game, the Washington football team game just seemed like I could mostly chalk it up to drops. Whereas this past game against the Dallas Cowboys, it was, penalties that were called, penalties that weren't called, turnovers, guys tripping, Storm Norton, predetermined throws. It was just a combination of things. And I think that's going to be too much for them to overcome in 1 week against the Chiefs where they absolutely have to be perfect. But I do think it's something that they can overcome in the future. So I'm going to say patience for now. I think they're too talented, and they've admitted that they're probably going to lean on the run more in the red zone because they have a pretty good, pretty solid group of rushers, and they have a really good offensive line, particularly to that left side. So I'll say patience for now. They're not going to be so good at moving the ball yet so bad at moving the ball in the red zone for that long. I think things will turn around. But part of the reason they can't score in the red zone is because of these penalties. The Chargers, again, I don't know how things changed with last night's game. Last I checked, they were third in the league with penalties. They are currently on pace for 153 penalties this season. I don't expect that to hold up, but that's not good considering last year in a 16-game season, I believe they had 85. So is this a panic or patience for you, Arjun?
This is a panic for me.
Okay.
This is actually a scary trend I noticed in the preseason. Chargers
Yeah.
ranked second in penalties in the preseason, according to our PFF charting. And they're I think this is what you have on the screen is accepted penalties. The Chargers are tied for second for the most penalties just through 2 weeks, minus the Carolina Houston game. So this is a panic for me, and I don't know if we coach it up to bad coaching, like for bad technique, or I think the refs are calling a lot more flags, but the Chargers need to be much better in terms of like not allowing these penalties to ruin their offensive momentum going forward.
Yeah, this is. I definitely do want to say panic, and you pointing out the preseason. This just not really being a 2-game trend, but actually a preseason into this season trend. Do I want to say panic or patience here? Do I think that they're going to get called on everything moving forward? Do I think they'll hit 153 penalties at the end of the year? God, I hope not, because I do not want to watch that football game or that football season. But it is a bit of a panic right now, and it's not a strong panic. I'm not saying the sky is falling, but it is limiting what they can do. And unfortunately, in this division, against the Kansas City Chiefs, you make 2 penalties and it's over. You're going to lose the game. You give Mahomes one more shot or whatever. Like, it was really frustrating watching the game. And I know that the refs did call or not call some penalties that were very wishy-washy, but like Trey Pipkins getting a face mask on a field goal, I don't think I've ever seen that. Now, I don't know if that was legit. I don't know if that's a good call, bad call, but how does that happen? The team just seems in different areas. Yes, the refs could not call some things. That would be nice. But it just seems that they are really off right now. And the penalties, that's just not good, especially when your offense is working so well. It was frustrating watching the all-22 because the all-22 we have, it doesn't show the down and distance or time in between each play. So we just have them going from like the 30, then a 20-yard play to the 50, which you see in that play. And then the next play, they start at the 40 because they went back 10 yards. It was so frustrating to follow because they would get 50 that only gain, 4, or go backwards 20, or it was such a mess. So I think they can correct this, but for right now, it is a bit of a panic, especially heading to Kansas City. All right, the next one, another part of potentially their red zone woes, is Donald Parham not getting involved. So far, he has not had a catch that has counted. I believe he has had one target that has counted. Their target was that long touchdown, but that was negated by, I believe, a Jared Cook penalty, which was a very obvious call penalty. So Parham has not been involved, despite the fact that I think we've seen him in training camp getting very involved. And then even last year in that offense, whether it's against the Bucks or the Jags or that last game against the Chiefs, when it came down to the red zone, they were targeting Donald Parham, and they've sort of let Mike Williams be that for them right now. But you do have another guy, and granted, I don't think Donald Parham's as reliable as Mike Williams right now, but he is another option. And there was a play either in the red zone or somewhere between the 30 and the goal line where Donald Parham was wide open raising his arm, and Herbert just flat out missed him. So it's a tough call. It's very early. I don't think he's not a guy we expected to have tons of targets and touchdowns and everything, but his lack of involvement so far raises questions. So is this panic for you or is this patience?
Honestly, I think this is a little bit of like a panic situation.
Okay.
So out of the 103 dropbacks Herbert's been on, Parham's only gone on routes on only 27 of them. So
wow.
I don't know that calculation, but so that's like a 26%. So obviously we knew Jared Cook was going to be tight end 1. It doesn't seem like they're running a ton of 12 personnel. which I understand. But like I said, the margin for error in the red zone is so small. I'm confused why you wouldn't try to use someone like Donald Parham more. I'm not a huge fan of running like goal line fades, but Brandon Sealy said in his presser, like, it's analytically bad, but if you run into the right guy, then it's a high percentage play.
Right.
Is Donald Parham one of those guys? I'm not sure, but yeah, I would like to see him more involved, especially in the red zone, because I do think he's just a weapon that no one else has. But he might also be a guy that Joe Lombardi's really never had a chance to use.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I definitely like seeing Cook getting involved, or Allen or Williams or whatever, but this weapon is such a unique weapon. And you brought him on, you practiced so much with him. For him to not being used so far is a bit of a panic for me. Will he get more targets moving forward? Will he not have 0 receptions the rest of the year? Sure. Like, of course, he's going to catch more passes. He's going to have his touchdowns here and there. But the lack of usage is surprising so far. And so that kind of leans into the next one and our second to last topic. That's Joe Lombardi's offense. Right now, in terms of obviously yards per game, again, I don't know if things have changed, but the yards per game looks good. They can definitely move the ball, but then for different reasons, they don't work out in the red zone. So they're not scoring a bunch. Personally, I'm going to say patience for this one, because I did see a change, or at least an addition to this offense, or multiple additions to this offense from week 1 to week 2. We saw Mike Williams catch a slide route running from behind the line of scrimmage and out to the flat. That was new. Them being very quick to the line. That was, at least on that particular play, that was new. They had Herbert run the ball once. That was new. They got Austin Eckler more involved than they did week 1. So that was not unexpected, but it was new compared to week 1. So I do think there are some different things being worked in. I was a little more impressed with Lombardi in week 1 as opposed to week 2, but I'm going to say patience for now, especially because we all know it's going to take, it took Breeze and Peyton 2 years just to get caught up to speed here and become a dominant offense. So this is probably, if anything, the most long-term patience for me, not just this season, but even into next season.
Yeah. So I agree with everything you're saying. And before I give my answer, I want to ask, so I have like 3 kind of questions and like things I want you to answer. So number 1, how funny would it be to see Donald Parham running a seam route and Tyrann Mathieu, like 5'9", trying to guard him? I feel like Matthew would still come away with the pick, just because like that's
possibly
that's how much of a ball hawk he is. So that was something I thought of just watching that Ravens game. Okay. So here's the thing with Lombardi. I think he's called a pretty good game the first couple games. So he ranks right now 7th in play action percentage, something that I wanted to see the Chargers be super high in, because Herbert was pretty solid last year. But here's another question. So the Chargers right now, PFF per our Chargers, they have the Chargers as having the second most contested catches. So the Chargers are only behind the Titans in the highest percentage of their catches as being called contested.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you, do you think this is a coordinator thing? So is Lombardi just not scheming up good plays? Or is it the thing we've talked about all offseason, that we don't have a real separator outside of Keenan Allen? And as much as I think Mike Williams has improved, which he has, is the Chargers catches being contested at a relatively high rate on the receivers, or is it on Joe Lombardi?
Yeah, it's, to me, because I think they've let Mike Williams be a better version of himself. And even though he's not getting jump ball contested catches, they're letting him, catch a lot of balls that are going to be contested or very close. I think I want to say it's a coordinator sort of thing, but it's in a good way where they're getting Mike Williams involved. Like, I don't think it's because he's not drawing guys open. I do think like Donald Parham was drawn wide the frick open on a seam route, and Herbert missed him, or Jared Cook was wide open on, I believe, a post in the red zone, and he was open. And, so I really think it's technically, yes, it's on the coordinator because they're trying to get the ball to Mike Williams, but I think it's because it's Mike Williams. I don't know, little wishy-washy. Maybe I need more games on this one.
Okay. Next question. So I don't want to make this sound like I'm quizzing you or something. But
no, I like it. Let's do it.
So on the Donald Parham touchdown that was called back,
Mhm.
Have you had a chance to watch it again? And can you identify what type of like play concept that was?
I did not get a chance to watch that one.
Okay. Yeah. So if you get a chance with all 22 or whatever, watch that again. And they actually ran the leak concept, which Kyle
Oh, okay.
Shanahan and McVay have used
Yeah.
extensively, right? Where they run a play action, the tight end
Mhm.
leaks. So he starts on one side, he leaks slowly to the other boundary, and then he takes off up the sideline, which is why
Mhm.
Parham was so wide open. He started on the right side of the
Gotcha.
formation, ended up on the left sideline, wide open for a
Mhm.
touchdown. Shane Day,
Oh.
that's what he was brought over to do. Passing
Yeah.
game coordinator. I love to see it. I watched that play again. I was like, that's Leak, that's Shanahan, that's Shane Day. So
Nice.
loved that. And my dang, I had one more question. Um uh okay, so I'll just give my take on this. I think this is a
Okay.
patience thing. Also, Lombardi, he does seem like he's gotten better. He's not calling as many screens. I do think they were tripped up a little bit. There were a couple of times where like they ran a weird screen on a fake blitz or something. I think that's more of a
Mhm.
Herbert like misdiagnosing the defense.
Mhm.
So I remember the question. So what coverage do you think teams have run against the Chargers the most often?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, I mean, I would assume it was last week was a cover 3 defense, wasn't it? I know, Quinn mixes it up, but I'll just say cover 3 because they played Dallas last week and they had Quinn.
Yeah, so that's a good guess. But it would actually be cover four. So this is
Okay.
quarters.
Yeah.
So when we talk about why haven't the Chargers had those 50-yard bombs to guide in?
Mm,
Where's the deep
mhm.
shots in this offense? Well, teams are being smart about it. They're not letting Herbert just launch the ball down the field, playing cover one, playing cover two. They're playing a lot of cover four, and they're forcing teams.
Yeah.
They're forcing Justin Herbert to take the checkdowns, which, as PFF Eric Eager said in his interview with Steven, Herbert wasn't that good at last year. He wasn't good at taking those
Mm,
doubles or taking those intermediate throws.
right.
So teams are running a lot more quarters this year. They've run it against the Chargers at the highest rate, and that's something that
Interesting.
I'm expecting the Chiefs to do this week, and then also Brandon Staley to do against Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I like it. Do you know how often Mahomes has faced quarters through his career? And I'm just curious if you knew how good he happened to be against quarters.
Um,
There's no way you would have known that unless you knew it or didn't. Like, sorry
yeah,
to throw that one at you.
not against. So in his career, I don't have that with me, but I have it how he did last year. If you
Okay,
want that number,
sure.
just so I wrote an article for PFF about this, like how each quarterback performed
Mhm.
against each coverage. So Mahomes against cover four in 2020 had like a 0.13 EPA,
Mhm.
which out of every single coverage except cover zero and cover six, that was his lowest performance in terms of efficiency. So,
Interesting.
I would kind of expect Brandon Staley to play a lot of quarters, which ironically is within his system.
Yeah. No, interesting. Mahomes, interesting. Cover zero is not good against. I mean, I guess they don't have. I mean, they have Hill, they have Kelsey, and they definitely have guys that can win against cover zero. But then I guess the other guys maybe not so much. I'm still surprised that he's not good against cover zero. Interesting.
Yeah. But the problem here with cover four is like the Mahomes is going to take the checkdowns. He's proved like throughout his
Yeah.
career, he's proven that he's not going to play hero ball. But do the Chargers have the guys to make that tackle? Like
Right.
remember that the Byron Pringle touchdown or the Travis Kelsey touchdown. The Ravens just let them break like 4 tackles each.
Yeah.
Like the end of the half touchdown, Kenneth Murray completely overshoots CeeDee Lamb, and
Mm,
it's
hmm.
those missed tackles will add up. And against the Chiefs, you really have zero room for error.
Absolutely. And what a great segue. Thank you very much for segueing us to our next point. That is Kenneth Murray. We're going to talk about our last guy here, panic or patience. I was surprised to see that in the run game, Kenneth Murray's average depth of tackle among guys with 48 or more run defense snaps, which is how many he has, is an 8. And that's basically the worst in the league right now. An average depth of tackle of 8 in the run game is not great. And I would consider you'd probably need a larger sample size. You probably want half a season. This just, could happen to be one game. I don't know what it was in week 1, so maybe it was different. But it feels like on film you can see him. Now, granted, he was injured in the offseason and he was injured in the Dallas game. So you could consider that that's something that's holding him back, making him slow. But it just felt like even against the Washington football team, he was slow to react, on his heels, not that quick. It seemed like the veteran guys, more veteran guys, I should say, like a Kaiser White, are just thinking faster right now, whereas Murray's just a step behind. So again, this is probably patience for me because it is so early in his career and he's just learning something new. But what do you think of this so far?
Yeah, no, it's a good point, and I think it is patience. They're asking him to play faster. I'm not a football guy, so whatever. I guess that just means like attack the gaps. And from what I understand, Brandon Staley's goal with his defensive line is you're supposed to force the runners outside, so guys like Derwin James and Kenneth Murray can go make that tackle. But I went back, rewatched some of the Washington tape. There was, I think, the Gibson run where he broke it for like 26. Murray completely overshot that right guard gap and just let him, break loose. So I think this is easily patience for me, just because it's, we're still so young in this early in the season.
Right.
But I would like to see some more like the splash plays that we kind of expect Kenneth Murray to have. Not like necessarily in coverage, but in the run game. Like he's probably hit. I think after like Justin Jones, I would probably say he's probably the second most important player in the run game, just because because he needs to be able to make those tackles outside of the hashes, which is how the Chargers are going to be forcing the rushers to attack the Chargers defense.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really curious to see if at all they rotate in Drew Tranquill. I know that technically White and Tranquill are the co-starters, but they do want to get Tranquill involved in there somehow. And I don't know how you really take Kaiser White off the field, but then do they want to take Kenneth Murray off the field? I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how they evolve this defense, if at all, moving forward. Maybe Tranquill really is just going to be a couple of snaps guy and a special teamer, and that's okay. Surprising for sure. I think you and I talked about this the day 1 of training camp, where it's like, Kaiser White is the starting linebacker, and none of us expected that because we thought Tranquill was the green dot guy. He was going to be the main starter. He's going to be there the most snaps. And turns out he has the least amount of snaps so far. That's very interesting. So Arjun, thank you so much for joining me. This has been great. I hope you guys that are listening aren't too panicked about anything. I hope maybe you're not too patient either. I hope you're just kind of right in the middle. I feel like we're sort of right in the middle. Nothing is too full-blown panic. I think the only thing you had full-blown panic on was the penalties, if I'm not mistaken.
No, right tackle.
Right tackle was full-blown panic, and I don't really blame you for that one. So is there anything else that we didn't mention that you want to talk about that's maybe panic or patience, or we good?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Again, Arjun, thank you so much for joining me. This was awesome. Hope to get you on more. As always, guys, please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you're panicked about, what you're patient about. Are we wrong? Are we right? We're probably 100% right. So let us know that. All right, guys, take care.